Hello everyone, and welcome back to a very exciting chess game. This time by Keres again. He had the white pieces in this chess game, and his opponent was another legend of chess, Vasily Smyslov, the former world chess champion. And this is a must-see tactical attacking beauty by Keres. So this chess game was played in Moscow, back in the Soviet Union. So Russia was known as the Soviet Union, and Moscow was, I think, known as Leningrad in 1939. So let's see what happened in this incredible attacking chess game. So of course, Keres' opponent, Vasily Smyslov, was the former world chess champion, a very strong chess player. And let's see how Keres handled his opponent in this chess game and outplayed him. A small spoiler. So Keres starts the game with d4, and we have Queen's Gambit declined position. So e3 and then castling. Knight to f3, b6. So Smyslov wants to fianchetto his bishop. C takes on d5, e takes on d5. Bishop to d3, bishop to b7, and then queen to c2. Developing the knight, and both players are quickly mobilizing their forces. So h6, and then bishop back, and Keres is aiming this weak looking pawn, so a6, and then rook over, knight back. So basically Smyslov wants to fight for this diagonal, and again lining the queen and rook in this line, aiming c7, so fighting for the diagonal. And then knight to e2. So if capturing the bishop, Keres is going to place his knight perfectly on f5, and that knight is going to be very active. So Smyslov didn't want that. He didn't capture the bishop. And then exchanging the bishops and simplifying the game a little bit, knight to g3 and aiming on f5. So actually, if knight to f5, that's going to be difficult move to deal with for Smyslov. So he's defending that with pushing the g pawn. And then h4 by Keres. He wants to undermine on f5 with pushing the pawn. So that's a threat. And you can see that queen bishop battery is aiming on g6. So we can already see that Smyslov has some weaknesses and holes in his position, and white has slight advantage in this position. So h5 closing. But now the knight gets in, and this is much better looking position for white. And then c5, bishop to f5 by Keres, the first very exciting move in this chess game. And maybe Smyslov overlooked this. He overlooked this move, and actually this move is compromising, discombobulates black's position a little bit. So in this position, actually black can't accept the sacrifice. I will show you why, but maybe we can say that bishop takes knight, queen takes bishop, and then knight takes on h5 is possible, because if black captures the knight, then checkmating the king on h7. So it looks like this position is a difficult position to deal with in black's perspective. So in this position, Smyslov completely ignored that bishop, and he simply captures the pawn. But let's see what happens if capturing the bishop. Then knight takes on f5 is deadly, extremely deadly, and this is attacking the queen, and there are not so many safe spots for the queen. For example, if queen to c6, then knight to e7 is going to fork the king and the queen. And worse than that is that actually black is getting checkmated after moving the king. There is forced checkmate. So in this position, let's play queen to f6 then. Then can you see what white can play in this position? Then knight to e7, deflecting the queen. If moving the king, then queen to h7 is checkmate. So, but this is still checkmate. Okay, so a very beautiful move by Keres, which discombobulates black's position. And if there were no queen on this 6th rank, capturing the pawn with the bishop, sacrificing the bishop is completely fine, because then queen is going to land on g6, and how is black defending? And checkmating the king on h7 maybe. So we have pawn takes, not touching the bishop for a good reason. And then here comes exclamation point by Paul Keres. Paul Keres was also known as Paul II. So he was like the second Paul Morphy because of his brilliant play as a chess player. So can you guess the next brilliant move of Paul Keres? What would you do in this position if you had the white pieces? Guess the move. Maybe bishop takes knight comes to mind, and then knight takes on h5. Bishop to e6. What a move. Ooh. Ooh. And Smyslov, I mean, this is a multi-purpose move, a beautiful tactical move by Paul Keres. Now, queen takes on g6 is possible because this is pinning the pawn. This move blocks the queen, defending on g6. And it pins the f-pawn at the same time. An amazingly beautiful tactical move by Paul Keres, which is a multi-purpose move. And this is difficult to deal with in black's perspective. So in this position, we have d3, a desperate pawn sacrifice by Vasily Smyslov. You might also ask why not bishop takes on d7 by Keres. Then Smyslov would play queen takes on d7, and if knight takes on h5, of course, you can take the knight because you would get checkmated like this. But Smyslov would, of course, play something like this, d takes on e3, and then pawn takes and queen to g4. And actually black is doing fine. Black can completely ignore this knight. But okay, so first exclamation point, bishop to f5, and then the second exclamation point, bishop to e6 by Paul Keres, and his bishop is dancing. It is dancing. Guys, incredible. d3, a desperate pawn sacrifice by Vasily Smyslov for surviving against the legendary genius. Queen takes on d3. And then knight to h5 is Keres in trouble. It's not that simple. Queen to b1, still looking at the tender g6, but black is defending everything. So Smyslov captured the bishop, which weakened terribly the g-pawn, and then defender elimination idea f4. If moving the knight, then landing with queen, and black is not going to survive this. So checkmating the king, of course, on h7. So king to g7 and simply capturing the knight, queen takes, and then rook to f1, fighting for the f-file, so capturing the rook, king takes rook, and then landing on g6 is on the cards. So rook takes on f1, rook takes, and then knight to d6, defending on f7 and developing the passive looking knight. But Keres has the control of the f-file, of the open f-file. For black, holding this position together seems tricky, to say the least. And then here comes another very beautiful move by Paul Keres. We can also say exclamation point for that move, but actually that move is not very difficult to guess. So can you guess what white can play in this position? Guess the move for Paul Keres. What would you do? Okay, boom, knight takes on h5, Paul Keres knight smacks into h5. Ooh, Smyslov is in trouble. We have king to h6. If capturing the knight, this is why, I mean, you only had to see one move ahead. That's why guessing that move was not that difficult. Black is getting checkmated, queen to h7. What a beautiful chess by Paul Keres. Anyway, so knight takes on h5, exclamation point, but we have king to h6 and then knight to f6. Now his knights are dancing. So looking at g4, knight to g4 is going to fork the king and the queen. Check, but still white has the superior position. Queen to d4, and this time this pawn drops, knight takes on e6. So queen takes check, king to g1, okay, black is a pawn up, but white has the superior position, and then d4, hoping to attack, liberating the bishop and hoping to attack with an inferior position. But generally it is doomed to fail when you have the inferior position and trying to attack. So can you guess white's next move? what would you do? So in this case, actually, Smyslov failed very quickly because he had the inferior position. Can you guess how white is winning? Guess the next move of white that wins on the spot, actually. What would you do? It is very simple. Okay, simply queen to c1, that's check. The king is surrendered because of the knights. Dark clouds gathered around the king. The knights, Keres knights, combine perfectly. This is work of art, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely incredible. So the knight on e6 is covering g7 and also g5. And the knight on f6 covers, as you can see, h7 and h5. So there is no escape for black. Of course, you can't block with the queen. The only move is g5, but then Keres played queen to c7, and this time Vasily Smyslov resigned, the world chess champion. Unbelievable chess game by Keres. How to defend the checkmate threat? Queen to g7 or queen to h7. There is no defense, and this was a masterpiece by Keres. So the possible continuation, these are engines moves, by the way. Knight to f7, queen takes, queen to h1. Desperate. King takes on h1, desperate. Bishop takes on g2, and then you can checkmate the king humiliatingly with many, many different ways. Rook to h1, checkmate. Queen to g7, checkmate. Queen to h7, queen to h5, knight to g4, they are all checkmates. Nice play, Shakespeare. Smyslov was an opera singer. He enjoyed opera. Maybe this is what he said after this chess game. Nice play, Shakespeare. What a game by Keres. A masterpiece, you know. So, thank you so much for watching. Have a good rest of your Sunday, and I hope to see you next time. I hope in Monday. So, do take care, stay safe. And again, I hope you enjoyed this chess game. Is it possible not to enjoy this masterpiece by Keres? So stay safe, take care, and bye-bye.